So we're back at Priory Pharmacy a few weeks after the robot has been installed. Today, we're diving deeper into why Prab chose to automate his pharmacy. Come with me and let's find out how he's doing. All right, Prab, thank you for agreeing to take part in this interview and giving us access to your pharmacy. So how are you doing today?
Yeah, I'm really good, thank you. Yeah.
Fantastic, fantastic. So let's take it right from the top. How did you get into pharmacy?
I always had an interest in science, and at school I always wanted to do something to help people, and I think it all just really went from there, to be honest. I did some work experience in a pharmacy and I thought, yeah, this is what I wanted to do.
Fantastic. And was running your own pharmacy something that you always wanted to do? Was that always the plan?
Yeah, certainly when I was at university, I always wanted to have my own business. My family have always had businesses in the past, and yeah, this is definitely where I wanted to be in the future.
Fantastic. And just talk me through your early days running Priory Pharmacy. How was it like?
So when I bought the pharmacy almost sort of 4 years ago, it did not look anything like this. The pharmacy didn't even have a consultation room. Everything needed gutting and starting again. And, you know, we undertook that process, and, you know, it was very, very difficult to sort of work around having a full refit and full rewire and everything. But, you know, the customers really appreciated it, and everyone was really supportive during that period. So if anything wasn't quite ready, people were more than willing to sort of come back, and you know, the community has been supportive of us all the way through that process. That's
fantastic. And what would you say were some of the biggest hurdles you had to go through during that time period?
I would probably say the biggest hurdles was just literally trying to manage around having a refit done, trying to make sure like we still dispensing safely and meeting people's needs. But on the whole, I found we were very lucky. We had a really good team from Steve from SJH Retail. They came down and they did it, and you know, we did it over a couple of weekends, so they reduced the impact as much as possible on us, and then we were able to sort of carry on during the week, which was brilliant. Yeah.
Fantastic. Yeah, so what do you think makes Priory Pharmacy stand out in your community?
So, yeah, I think it's being adaptive and responsive to what the community needs. I think that's what makes us stand out the most.
Fantastic. And you mentioned regarding the automation. So what brought you to think, okay, I need a dispensing robot now in your pharmacy?
Some of this came about because the landscape has really changed. Pharmacy funding has not increased in line with costs. Staff are more and more expensive. So I was trying to look for a new way of you know, getting through our work in as efficient manner as possible. I'd looked at automation in the past, a good couple of years ago, at my previous pharmacy, and I just really wasn't impressed with what was on the market. I felt that with our current sort of workflow with Titan, it was enough. But then I discovered Meditech at the pharmacy show, and the journey began from there last October.
Fantastic. And what were the sort of main issues or pain points you were trying to solve at that point when you said, okay, let me get a dispensing robot?
I think the main issue that we're having is we were growing really, really fast. So we've been really lucky. The pharmacy's gone from 1,000 items when I bought it. We're doing just under 16 now. And I couldn't just keep hiring more and more people, and I was finding it difficult to find really great people. I'm really blessed here. I've got a fantastic team, and to keep finding people of that caliber I found was very difficult. So I needed to give them the tools to be able to do their job in the best possible manner, and this is what made me look at automation.
Fantastic. From a financial perspective, what are you hoping to gain? Is it boosting revenue, cost cutting, more efficiency? I'm
looking to sort of grow my revenue with this. The whole point of having the robot in really wasn't to cost cut at all. Ideally, I want to be able to almost double my item and double my output in the long run, and that's what we're aiming to do. But similarly, I wanted to free up my staff as well to provide more services, because now obviously they can do blood pressure checks, they can help with doing vaccinations, and be more available to customers and be, you know, more responsive, and actually be able to have a conversation over the counter instead of being bogged down in the dispensing. So this was also for them as well.
Fantastic. And how will you know it's working? What sort of metrics are you going to measure in the next few weeks or few months to know that it's working?
So we're really lucky with Titan. They use a system called Power BI, which basically takes all your dispensing data, aggregates it. They give you a scorecard, and you can keep an eye on like how much each member of staff is labelling and that kind of thing. So one of the things we'll be looking at predominantly is, what is our output now? Like, we've made this huge change. This was a big transition. You know, what kind of output are we achieving? And the early results are incredibly promising. As you know, I've told you earlier, the pharmacy is still only partly complete. We haven't really got all the stock even into the robot yet, and yet our output is almost matching, or potentially, I think, beating really what we were doing before. So the early signs are incredibly promising, and I think it's only going to get better from there, particularly as the robot learns our sort of most common items that we're dispensing, and it starts filling up our speed channels. I think then we're really going to take off.
Fantastic. And how did you go about researching your options for automation?
So at previous pharmacy shows, I've been aware of the different sort of solutions that were out there, but I literally really took my time, and I invited some of them down to the pharmacy, or particularly to my previous pharmacy as well, to come and explain their technology, explain their solutions, and to kind of see if that fit with my workflow and how I wanted to work. And what I really liked with Meditech was, it wasn't just a case of, oh yeah, we can just pop a robot here and here's some outputs and, you know, off you go. They really sort of sat down with me and took the time, even though they were very, very busy at the pharmacy show, to kind of ask me, you know, what is it that I would like to do? You know, what do I want to achieve? And then they kind of explained to me how the solution could assist with that. And the whole approach was totally different. It was really personal, and I felt listened to, and that's what drew me to them.
Fantastic. So you basically summarize why they're the right fit, really.
Yeah.
What would you say sets them apart from the other ones that you spoke to?
I think the technology is far and above better than anything else that's out there. I think that even though the robot is built in Belgium, they really understand the UK market. What really drew me to their solution was the speed channels. So I wanted more channels in our robot, but unfortunately I physically can't fit them in. So we've got 400 high-speed channels here, and they can dispense 5 packets a second out to our dispensers.
Wow.
There's no other solution on the market that can really do that. And the robot can do that independently of the picking head. So while that head might be collecting, say, a slower moving line, the dispensers are not hanging around. They've got stock appearing right next to them, and they can get on and start labeling that while the arm goes and delivers something else. So, you know, I really like that type of solution, and I was really lucky enough to be invited to go and see the robot in action at a friend of mine's pharmacy, and that's what really sold it to me, because I was able to see how that output was, you know, far, far and above anything that we were doing here, and yet the pharmacy was so calm, and the robot didn't really slow down, and there was no hanging around or waiting around that I'd seen in other solutions. Fantastic.
And talk us through installation day. I was, you know, there for some of it, but how was it like?
I mean, installation is a very, very stressful point. I'm not going to sugarcoat that, but I think, you know, any change is not easy. But the team that came down were absolutely fantastic. So, you know, big shout out to Carl. So thank you very much for being so patient with us, especially as we kept asking for certain things to happen. And he was really amenable to everything that we wanted to happen on that day. It took a week to install, and, you know, the team worked really, really hard during that period. And they were really, you know, we were trying to obviously work around them, but they were trying to work around us. And they were really sort of thoughtful about, you know, their approach, and, you know, to make sure that they weren't in the way. And I was like, don't worry, you have a prime place, you know, you guys do what you need to do. But yeah, so, you know, installation, you know, was a really great journey. And the fantastic thing was, and I'm sure the team probably got tired of all my questions, but I was asking, oh, why is this like this? And or how does this work? And, you know, they were happy to explain bits to me, and, you know, it was really fascinating from that standpoint.
That's great. And was there anything that really surprised you during the process at all?
The process had been explained to me, so, you know, I didn't have any surprises really. It's just amazing how it all sort of, watching it all come together, and that's the thing I really enjoyed about it.
Fantastic. And what would you say to another pharmacy owner who's unsure about investing into automation?
I think they've got to really work out what they really want from their business and where they want to go. I think you really should seriously consider automation now, because, you know, as I said, our costs are rising, but our pay is sort of stagnant and is not keeping in line with that. So, you know, automation I think makes sense at a much lower sort of dispensing point. Like, even if I was doing 8,000 items, or I was doing less here, you know, I would utilize Titan and I would utilize Meditech. I think it's a great pairing, and that will then free me up to focus primarily on services, and that's where the NHS wants us to be, and that's what the 10-year plan is all about. And I think that having this type of technology is what's going to allow me to deliver that.
Fantastic. And so what's next for you and Priory Pharmacy then? Anything coming up that you'd like to share with us?
I think I'm more than happy now in terms of major works in the pharmacy. I think we need to get everything bedded in, and I'm going to be working really closely with Titan, with Meditech, to improve the integration of the robot. We've got a couple of really great ideas that Meditech have that they want to do with Titan as well, and that's only going to help our workflow, and that's the sort of thing I'm going to be testing and working on in the immediate future.
Sounds good. Thanks a lot.
No worries.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Cheers.
Fantastic.
How was that?
How was that, guys? All right, Cyrus, how are you doing today?
Really good,
Yeah?
thank you.
Fantastic. All right, could you just start by just telling us a bit about yourself?
My name's Cyrus Hodivala. I'm the Managing Director for Meditech UK and Ireland. 35 years in automation, worked in multiple different industries and been supplying the NHS for over 20 years.
Fantastic. Can you just share a backstory of Meditech? How did it all start?
So Meditech as a company is a Belgium-based manufacturer specifically of pack picking robotics. Unlike almost all of our competitors in the market, they've specialized in community pharmacy. They've got a 100-year legacy of dealing with community pharmacy worldwide. They are owned by one of the largest community pharmacy specific shop fitters that started in the 1920s in Belgium. And they're still family owned. They're third generation family owned. It's now the grandson of the original founder of the company, who owns the company, even though he's in his 60s, but he's a great guy to work with. And they're an incredibly transparent company. And Meditech came about originally from their shop fitting. So how they started in pharmacy shop fitting was very simple. The original founder was a piano builder, great carpenter, wonderful craftsman. And in the 1920s, who could afford a handmade piano? It would be the mayor, the doctor, chief of police, pharmacist. Yeah, those are the kind of people that would buy those kind of products. And a pharmacist bought a piano for his daughter, had lovely inlay work in it, and he was renowned for his inlay work. And he said, "I've just built a new pharmacy and I need a new counter. Could you build a counter for me?" And he said, "Yes, we could do that for you." And he said, "And I want an inlaid, the twin intertwined snakes and a mortar and pestle on the front of the counter. Could you do that?" And he said, "Yes, we can do that." And he built this beautiful wooden counter with this wonderful marquetry work in. And Mr. Pharmacist shows to all of his pharmacist friends, and another pharmacist comes to him and said, "I need a counter as well, but I need some shelves and I need some drawers. Could you build those for me?" And that's how he transitioned from building pianos to kitting out pharmacies. And over the years, Clermont Farm, which is that company, now owned by Jan Clermont, grew bigger and bigger and bigger until the 1990s, when they started to get asked for bespoke robotics. Robotics was entering the community pharmacy market, and people were saying, "We think robotics is the way we should be going. Can you help us out with that?" And this was in Belgium, in France, in other countries across Europe. And they started to build one-off bespoke robots as part of their shop refits. And between the mid-1990s and the early 2000s, they rapidly discovered that it was untenable to build one-off robots for everybody. Different spare parts, different configurations, different fabrications for every robot. So they decided to specialize in the way they were going to build their robotics, and they formed Meditech in the early 2000s. And one of the robotics engineers they had working with them at the time says, "I know a guy, really talented robotics engineer. His name is Timon de Junge, and Timon is now the CEO of Meditech in Belgium." And strangely, Timon and I were trained by the same robotics engineers. And I qualified, we're a year apart in age, and I qualified up in Salford, and he was trained at another university. And so we have very similar ideas on what makes a good pharmacy robot, or what makes a good robot and automation altogether. And he was working for Alcatel at the time, the chip manufacturer, creating production lines for Alcatel just at the cusp of the Bluetooth revolution. So they were making all the Bluetooth chips for worldwide almost, Alcatel at the time. And so Alcatel's demands were very, very high. And they said, "We need our production lines to be working 24/7, and zero downtime, no downtime for repairs or anything like that, full predictive maintenance, had to be of the highest quality, clean room quality. And that was the production line that Timon developed for Alcatel. And then he took those thought processes and those standards and brought them to community pharmacy robotics. And he looked at all of the manufacturers and competitors out in the market at the time. And he said, why don't these robots last longer? Why were they failing after 7, 8, 9 years? He was building systems that were due to last 20, 25, 30 years. Why aren't they easier to service? Why are there so many custom-made parts in these robots? The more you customize things, the more you make custom-made parts for things, the more they're going to fail. Why aren't they faster? Why do they dispense so slowly? So he wanted a system that was faster. And then beyond that, he wanted it to be synonymous with quality. He wanted them to have a reputation for quality in the industry that nobody else had. And so he put all his efforts to create a ground-up solution with the best-in-class technology that was, in our opinion, the fastest system at that price point, that was built entirely from commercially available components. So unlike some other brands that were out there at the time, we didn't take parts in from manufacturers, rebrand them, stick our own labels on them, so that you as a pharmacist didn't know where to buy them from. You had to buy them from that manufacturer. You can pick up a motor off one of our conveyors, type the serial number in and the model number, and you'll come up with exactly the same part. And so we were completely transparent in the way we built the robots and what the goals were around how they would be manufactured and supplied to the pharmacists.
Fantastic. Thank you for giving us a deep dive into the history of Meditech. So what's the bigger picture and vision for Meditech then going forward for pharmacy automation?
So in the last probably 5 to 6 years, Meditech has grown really rapidly internationally. We're now in 27 countries worldwide. We have over 3,500 live sites worldwide as of middle of 2025, where we are now, and a huge production backlog that we are building into. Last year, Meditech launched a purpose-built 76 million euro factory to build these robots in. Wow. Previously, they were in 4 different sites. They amalgamated them all into one. It was nearly 2 years in the building, 450 meters long, 350 meters deep on 4 levels, scheduled to build over 1,000 robots a year. That reputation for quality and quality standards is huge, and it's following them into every country that they're moving into.
Fantastic.
And in the UK, we've found that the market has really opened their arms to having a new manufacturer in the market with a different aspect and a different view on the way that technology should be used, and maybe a different angle and understanding of what pharmacy should be in the UK.
Okay. So just talk me through how Meditech robots actually work. Can you just give me a behind the scenes of how the installation works?
There are 2 fundamental technologies for storing and dispensing pack picking, original pack dispensing, or OPD dispensing in the UK, in any robotics that you find. Typically, there is chaotic storage robots, essentially a big box the size of a room, glass shelves down both sides, some kind of picking head running up and down between the glass shelves, and it's called chaotic storage because only the robot knows where it's put a box away. It's very, very space efficient because obviously that pack is only taking up the size of that pack within the robot on a shelf. And it means that the robot can tessellate boxes together on shelves in order to be able to find the best space within the robot for those packs to fit. It doesn't matter if you're holding 1 pack or 100 packs, it will find the best space for them. The problem with that is it slows down your picking speed, because you're then searching on shelves in order to be able to find things. If you've got queues of boxes on shelves and you want the 3rd or 4th box on that shelf, you've got to move the other boxes out of the way to be able to retrieve that other box. So typical picking speed, although it sounds fast, it's about, for most of the manufacturers in the market, is about 8 to 11 seconds per pick. The other method of storing stock is channel-fed dispensing. These are metal or plastic channels, typically about 80 centimeters long, with only a single product type sorted in that channel. So it pre-sorts all of your stock. The beauty of doing this is if I want 80 milligram of torvastatin, 28 tevas, I know exactly where that stock is, and I can go and pick multiple products. So for fast moving stock, it's great. Problem being is it's not particularly space efficient, because even if that entire channel only has one box in, the entire channel is allocated to that one box. So it improves your picking speed. Generally, most channel systems you're talking about 4 seconds per pick. Meditech is unique in the UK market in that it is the only system that amalgamates both chaotic storage for your bulk stock and channel fed storage for your fast moving lines in one system, fully auto-loaded. So there are channel fed systems out there, there are chaotic systems out there, there are some that dip into both, but it's done on a very small scale. The Meditech system is completely modular and allows you to have huge channel systems for your fast moving stock attached to chaotic storage for your back stock, and gives you the best of both worlds. So it gives you all that space efficiency for all your 1s and 2s that you might have at dispensing, very rarely. But for your fast-moving lines, for your metformins, your amlodipines, your atorvastatins, those kind of things you're using hundreds of boxes of a day, those can come from your channels. So you're using the most effective dispensing method for everything that you do. And our channels, unlike our other systems that are out in the market, the one thing that sets them apart is most channels in channel systems are gravity-fed. They act like a slide. They're at an angle, and they act like a slide. They're loaded from the back, the boxes slide down, and then there's some kind of release mechanism at the end that will drop the boxes into a picking head to be collected. Ours aren't angled, ours are horizontal, and each one is a powered conveyor. It's actually a powered unit. The beauty of that is that every channel acts as a picking head for you. So we've got systems in the UK with 600, 700, 800. We're about to do a system next week that does 1,100 channels in one system.
Wow.
They can all feed simultaneously. You heard Prab's system has got 400 channels in, I think. So this is a huge system. It's a hub system for 15 stores. And you can have multiple channels of the same stock line. So those metformins, when you're doing 4 packs, 8 packs, 12 packs at a time, they can dispense in seconds. And the beauty is that everyone sort of says, well, why do I need that much picking speed? My operators can't work at that speed. When you've got one operator, no, they can't. But when you've got 3, 4, 5, 6 operators all running simultaneously in order to get through the volume, it means that nobody's waiting for stock. Yeah, because that speed is shared out amongst all of the users, and it means that there's no delay. Here's a figure for you that I was with a pharmacist just 2 weeks ago. Just a 12,000 item pharmacy, medium large pharmacy. And I said to him, he was talking about not changing his PMR, because he said, why should I change? Why? They're going to charge me £200 to change my PMR per month extra. I said, okay, you can save £200 a month. And I said, but you're going to lose out in the end. And he said, why? I said, well, look at the inefficiency in the process that you're doing, which is driven by your interaction between the PMR and the robot. You add in a 10-second inefficiency for 12,000 items. 10 seconds per item, which is barely carrying a basket from one side of the pharmacy to the other. I said, how much time do you think that adds? How much manpower time do you think that adds to your process over the course of a year? And he said, 5 days, a week. I said, 53 man days.
Wow.
10 seconds. And the process that he was doing was adding about 40 seconds of inefficiency into every item that he was doing. So that time scales up massively. Those iterative time savings that happen over tens of thousands of items during the course of a year are massively important. And my background is in robotics and process automation. I see that and it shouts at me. And I see those little things that other people don't see. And those are the things that I'm trying to eliminate from the pharmacy process.
Fantastic. So you've already spoken about what makes your robot different to everyone else's. Can you just talk us through the journey from when a pharmacy places an order to turning up to the pharmacy?
I'm going to go back one step.
Okay.
Because placing the order is the beginning of the journey with Meditech, which is great. But making the pharmacist understand why they need the automation, first of all, how they shouldn't be misled about misinformation that's out in the market around the automation, because there's so many pharmacists that are looking back and saying, talking about experiences from 6, 7, 8, 9 years ago of what they've heard in the market. Oh, automation doesn't pay for itself. Automation's too slow. Some of those things are true. The wrong automation in the wrong environment absolutely won't pay for itself. Too many times I've seen people missold systems that they didn't understand and they weren't fully explained. So we spend a lot of time up front explaining to the pharmacist what it is that they're buying, showing them site examples, taking them to reference sites, taking them to any of our installations in the UK. Initially, we were taking them internationally. We had to show them pharmacies in France and in Belgium because we didn't have any in the UK. And making sure that they understand what it is that they're buying and why they would buy it. But then beyond that, we do an entire throughput model with them. We look and break down exactly what they're doing now with their current manual processes, the timings for those processes, the volumes. People get massively misled by saying, oh, I'm a 10,000 item pharmacy, I'm a 20,000 item pharmacy. You can have two 20,000 item pharmacies, one who's doing a majority of 7 and 28-day scripts and one who's doing 56 and 84-day scripts. The number of packs that they're handling is massively different. Yeah. So saying, oh, you need a 7-meter robot because I just did a 10,000 item pharmacy and that's what they needed, doesn't work. It's down to how many hours a week you're working, how many days a week you're working, how much stock you need to get in on an hourly basis, daily basis, how many items are you dispensing per hour, how many packs are you dispensing per hour, what's your dispensing profile, how much MDS do you do? All of these questions we go through as a throughput calculation for them to make sure that what we are designing for them actually does the job. Not just that somebody else had the same system, so it will work for you. And then we look really deeply into their workflow. I've spent a lot of time and a lot of effort working with UK PMR companies to understand how the PMRs work and then how they can integrate with the robot and then how the two can improve each other. Features within PMRs like Titan that can help us, other PMR manufacturers that have also helped us, like Positive Solutions, who've helped us with their workflow in hub and spoke. And now we're taking those workflows and trying to mimic them with other PMR companies as well. There's been a lot of integration and effort to ensure that the two systems work together, even down to the layout of your benches, the workflow on your benches. Where should your screens be? Where should your printers be? How you should be organizing and cascading your data to each of your operators. We go through the entire workflow, not just the workflow, not just what the robot does, but how it interacts day to day with your staff and how it can improve all of your processes, your ordering processes, your stock control, everything, all of that we look at and make sure that they understand all of that. Then once we've got a final design, we'll have those, we do full 3D renders of it, make sure that the other pharmacy understands what it is that they are installing and how much space it's going to take and what it looks like on their site. Do manufacturing sign off, it gets built. And then one of the unique things that Meditech do is we pre-build every robot in the factory in Isegem in Belgium and run it for a week. So we know the robot works before it ever hits the site. Yeah, so we know all of this stuff works before it gets put on a lorry, disassemble it in reverse order to make sure that the installation is as seamless as possible, a bit like a huge Meccano set in reverse. And then we are able to unpack it. And that's why our install times are so short and why our first go lives work so often.
Fantastic. And that leads me to my next question. Could you just run us through the finances behind buying a robot? What are sort of numbers or what should the pharmacy owners be looking at? All right, so the big question all of viewers want to know about is money.
Okay, financing. It's a complex question, and one of the things that we do is, first of all, we make sure that the robot that we are designing does the job for the pharmacy. Too many times I've seen other manufacturers say, oh, robot needs to go in the corner there because that's the longest wall they've got, and if it fits there, that's what they're going to get. No idea whether the robot actually does the job. Is it too big? Is it too small? Will it hold enough stock? Will it do the stock rotations? Will it load fast enough? Loading is often something that's being missed in system design. So we make sure that the system does the job, and that in itself has value to the pharmacy because they then know that what we're buying, whatever number we come up with, actually is a machine that they need. Yeah, because there's always the question in the back of their mind, is somebody trying to oversell me or whatever? So making sure that actually what they're buying and they understand what they're buying and there's an appreciation of the value of that, that's the first thing that we do. We have, a question that we often get asked is, what numbers do I need to be doing to warrant having a robot? And that's purely down to your motivation for wanting a robot, because there are so many different use cases. I have a pharmacy group up in Scotland, and they wanted to put a robot into a pharmacy that's doing less than 4,000 items. Yeah, and I said, well, you don't need to do that. Why are you doing that? He said, it's an outlier. It's in the middle of nowhere. I find it really, really difficult to get staff for that site. So I need to be able to run that site, worst case, just with a pharmacist. That's it. Yeah. So I want someone to be putting his stock away, and I want the stock to come to him. It doesn't matter for the investment in the robot. That means I can be fully resilient at that site, knowing that that's happening. And that's true of a lot of rural pharmacies. So maybe in outer parts of Scotland, some parts of the north of England, which are more remote, some parts in Wales, going down into the southwest where the access is really, really bad. Just getting staff can be a huge problem, and that can be your trigger for doing it. Sometimes it's space. You want to be able to centralize all of your stock. You can't have people working on top of each other, walking past people with baskets of stock and trying to grab stuff off shelves, because it just doesn't work. There's no physical space. So having people to be laid out in front of the robot so that the stock will come to them, far less crossing over, that in itself is a huge patient safety aspect. Patient safety in itself, knowing that there aren't mispicks going on for stock, that puts immense pressure on pharmacists. Yeah, knowing that the stock is coming out right, knowing that it's coming out quickly, all of those kind of digital checks that go on because every box is ID'd by the robot, that plays a big part in some people's decision making. And then beyond that, there can be, as Prab has already alluded to, there are problems with regards to funding in community pharmacy, massive problems with regards to growth. The number of pharmacies in the UK since 2016 has come down from 14,000 pharmacy front doors to now hovering around 10,000, just under 10,000. So they've lost massive number of pharmacies in the UK, and yet year on year, like clockwork, the number of prescriptions being written is going up 3.5% a year. So it's more and more work going through fewer and fewer front doors. So those pharmacies are getting organically bigger. They were never built, some of them, to do the numbers that they were doing. They don't necessarily have the space. So they are trying to do more with less. That's my basic edict for automation in any environment. Mm-hmm. Do more with less and do it better. So, do you want to get rid of that font?
Yeah.
Yeah, that file that is buzzing around your face. So my basic edict is do more with less and do it better. So there can be multiple reasons why. But we have systems. The smallest system that we've sold this year went for just under £80,000. The biggest system that we sold this year went for just over £400,000. And so it's a massive range. But in both environments, almost without doubt, the return on investment in staff time and efficiency savings was probably just over a year to a year and a half. That should be reasonable if you've got the right size robot at the right spec for what you're doing and for what your goals are. That's what you should be looking at.
Fantastic, that's a great answer. All right, so a big question that all our viewers would want to know about, money.
So money's a big issue. Money in pharmacy is a big issue. As Prab alluded to earlier, massive shortage in funding in the NHS, in community pharmacy specifically, huge issues. Money only becomes a challenge if the pharmacist doesn't understand what it is that he's buying, or necessarily understands why he's buying it. Yeah, there are lots and lots of reasons why a pharmacist will buy a robot, and they're not all the same for every pharmacist. Finance is a huge problem in the NHS at the moment. In community pharmacy specifically, it's a massive, massive problem. Funding has not kept pace with what community pharmacy are being asked to do in the UK. And if there isn't an understanding of why a pharmacist is buying a robot, or what if there isn't an understanding of what a pharmacist is buying, or why they are purchasing it, and what their end goals are, and those can be different from pharmacist to pharmacist, that can be a massive problem. And that often happens. They see Mr. Pharmacist down the road saying, oh, I've just bought a new robot, and thinking, oh, I need to buy a robot. No necessarily thought process behind it, and they don't know necessarily why they're making that decision, but they think they need to move with the times. But understanding the use cases from a pharmacy I have up in Scotland, where they have massive problems attracting staff. Tiny little 4,000 item pharmacy asked for a robot. And I said, why do you want a robot for a pharmacy that's so small? Because we can't get staff, and I want that pharmacy to be able to run with a pharmacist on his own. Yeah, that's what the owner told me. Great. To the other extreme, I have a hub going in for 15 pharmacies, again up in Scotland, funnily enough. And that will be the largest single robot that Meditech have ever designed. So you have those extremes of use cases. You also have staffing issues in certain pharmacies. They can't either employ more staff because the space won't allow them to. So that's a problem. So they need to be able to do more with less. That's one of my, master edicts for automation in general. Do more with less and do it better. And then beyond that, patient safety, knowing that every pack is digitally checked, every pack is coming off the robot scanned, and you know that it's going to be dispensed correctly, because that's a massive pressure on the pharmacist to have to check every pack that's going through. Go back 7, 8 years, there were 14,000 plus pharmacy front doors in the UK. Today, less than 10,000. And that means they've lost, 30% of the pharmacy front doors in the UK have shut down for one reason or another. This dissolution of Lloyd's, so many different reasons. And yet, year on year, regular as clockwork, the number of prescriptions being written in the country is going up 3.5% a year. So you have a massive reduction in the number of pharmacy front doors, massive increase in their workloads, because there's more and more items going through fewer and fewer pharmacies, some of which were never designed to do those kind of item counts. They don't have the space, they don't have the staff, they don't have the skill set. And so automating the mundane, repetitive tasks of putting stock away, rotating stock, checking expiries, picking stock, and making that automated, and using your staff more effectively to be patient-facing, to give better patient experiences, that's what you want to be able to do. And ensuring that they understand what they're buying and why. So we had an instance recently where this loader that's behind us, we had a pharmacy that had a loading bay, and they wanted their loaders to be in their loading bay on the other side of a wall, and we were passing the packs through the wall to the robot so that they could be loaded in, so that we were separating loading and dispensing. Looking at the layout of your benches, where should your screens go, where should your printers go, how should your workflow work, what are you doing with your completed work? We look at all of those things and make sure that the workflow in the pharmacy is as efficient as possible, and we'll customize the robot as much as we need to ensure that you achieve those goals. But in all of that, we're trying to use still our range of standardized components. We're just putting them together in a creative way. We try not to, wherever possible, fabricate one-off components or one-off solutions. Whenever you do that, you're introducing a level of risk, you're introducing a level of uniqueness that, if it fails, is very difficult to back up. Whereas if it's a standard component, we can just swap it out and make a change. So we always try to make sure that everything is from our standard component range, just put together to make sure that that gives the solution that the pharmacist wants.
Fantastic. So let's delve into more about the pharmacist's role. With technology like this, how do you see the pharmacist's role evolving over time?
Remuneration within pharmacy, direct remuneration within pharmacy, has moved away from dispensing volumes to clinical service provision. There's been a massive push to say, right, you know what? You're essentially, in real world terms, earning less and less money per dispensed item. So you can be doing tens of thousands of items, and it is becoming a law of diminishing returns within community pharmacy. And that is a problem for the pharmacists. So they need to look for other revenue streams. And after a lot of negotiating and pressure, the government have looked to try and give clinical service provision as a revenue stream for pharmacists. What they've sort of ignored is that in order to be able to do that, you've got to free up the pharmacist's time to be able to do that. With all the pharmacists that I've met, and I've met tens of thousands in over 20 countries worldwide, I've seen pretty much every dispensing environment that you can imagine. I am yet to meet a pharmacist that studied for 4, 5, 6 years, depending on their level of qualification, so that they could count boxes in the back of a pharmacy. They would love to be working at the top of their license, operating in front of a patient. So by taking away the mundane roles within the pharmacy again, stacking on shelves, pulling boxes off shelves, checking boxes, taking all of those elements away, make the pharmacist patient-facing again, because that's what they really enjoy doing. And it does two things. firstly, it gives them that second revenue stream, but more than that, it gives them that personal interaction with the patient again that has been missing from within pharmacy for a long time now. So what we have seen is that there is a massive adoption of pack picking automation, but other types of automation as well. PMR upgrades are happening left, right, and center. The feature set from creative PMRs that are out there at the moment is absolutely wonderful to see, because so many of them have held stagnant for so long and have had no market pressure to want to invent new features.
Yeah.
They are improving the work-life balance for the pharmacists involved, because they're spending less and less time auditing what they're doing, checking what they're doing. The systems are doing it for it and doing it digitally. Digital systems, on the whole, don't go wrong. I sat in a dispensary this was in a hospital for 3 days. And the hospital dispensary was almost completely manual. And the error rate for pack picking for lookalike, sound-alike drugs, first thing in the morning, almost zero. 4 o'clock in the afternoon, after lunch, when people were clock watching, looking to see if they could go home, error rate went through the roof. In that one dispensary that was doing 45,000 items a month, 16 mispicks per day. 16 average over the course of those 3 days. And they had to be caught by the pharmacist. The amount of psychological and emotional pressure that places on the pharmacist every single day, saying that if I gave that wrong drug to the wrong patient, essentially, you could hurt them, you could kill them. Yeah? That's an amazing amount of pressure for a pharmacist to live under every day and then be told that we're not going to pay you as much next year. Yeah. So having support systems of technology, whether digital, software, hardware, like the robots that we produce, all of those things together are a massive change for the way that a pharmacist operates within their dispensing environment.
Fantastic. And what's on the horizon for Meditech in the next upcoming years? Any new innovations to look for?
I can't tell you. No, there are innovations coming. The innovation pipeline for Meditech is long and full.
Any exclusives for us?
There will be some product launches going on between now and the pharmacy show. Please come to the pharmacy show in Birmingham in October if you want to see our new product portfolio of everything that we've got going on. There will be some very exciting announcements happening over the summer in 2025. But more than that, I think Meditech, Timon, Jan, they're a great team of people to work with. We work directly with Jan and Timon, which is phenomenal. If we need something in the UK market, we ask for it and they make it happen, which is really great for us. But one thing about what we have done that is different in the marketplace and what Meditech have done is created a system that is designed for UK dispensing and UK dispensing requirements and UK needs. Other manufacturers have tried to shoehorn technologies that have been developed for Germany, have been developed for Italy, and then try and take that model and bring it to the UK. If I told you and spent half an hour talking about their dispensing models, you'd understand just how different they are. This has been developed for the way that the UK needs to work. They want higher degrees of efficiency, higher speeds, better dispensing, more reliable dispensing. All of that Meditech delivers in spades. And that, I think, is why the market have embraced us so warmly over the last 16 months since we launched 2 pharmacy shows ago now, and why we have felt really strongly that we are the best solution for what UK pharmacy needs right now.
Fantastic. And beyond the financial benefits, how do you see the robot impacting your team and the workflows of a regular pharmacy team?
It's about that support again. Going back to the answer that I had previously, it's about being able to give support to the pharmacist and being able to give a greater degree of consistency. Strangely, I had a conversation with Prab just before we started this interview, and we were talking about his dispensing volumes and where he was at, and that he was just about there or thereabouts what he could do on a good day in the pharmacy when he had his manual processes, even after just a couple of weeks of having the robot, which is a great achievement when you're completely changing your workflow to be able to get to that point so quickly. But the one thing that he said to me is that what he saw was that there was consistency. He was doing that every day now, not one huge day, then next day he'd get a big delivery in and they got distracted doing that, and so actually their numbers would drop the next day. They were doing those big numbers every single day. And that's that level of consistency, that level to be able to predict, you know what, we're going to be able to go in and going to be able to do 1,000 items today, 3,000 items today, 5,000 items today, and do it consistently, knowing that the technology is going to back you up, your PMR is going to back you up, your robot is going to back you up, and also be there as a catch-all for that checking and the checking processes. All those things together means that the pharmacy can work far more efficiently. They're nicer places to work in.
Yeah.
You talk to the staff, they really enjoy working in those kind of environments. Getting locum pharmacists in, getting pharmacy managers in for stores if you own multiple stores, they like working in pharmacies that have got robot processes because it outlines all of that and takes a lot of pressure off. And then from a patient experience, shorter waiting times, better customer experience, more time in front of the patient, better clinical services, all those kind of things that are leached benefits from having automation in, whether it's software or hardware, all of that improves the entire pharmacy experience from patient all the way through to pharmacist.
Fantastic. And do you have any last words for our audience today?
Go buy a robot.
You heard it. Thank you very much.
Thanks.
There you go. All right, guys, as you can see, I'm inside Prab's dispensing robot, just under 2 months of installation.